sure that's right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday business recovery call with the San Juan County Economic Development Council. I'm John Gomez. I'm the recovery coordinator at the EDC. We are a nonprofit that works with all the businesses on all of the islands of the county, assisting them with, currently assisting them with COVID response and recovery. If you have any questions or would like to contact us for small business assistance, please reach out to us via our website, or our email is info@sanjuans with an S, edc.org. Our guest today is JoAn Mann, from Orcas Island, and she's going to take us through something that we're all looking forward to dealing with as we move through phase 2 into phase 3 in the coming weeks, dealing with people. And for those of you who joined us today, we will be recording this and uploading it for later, so that folks that are working now in their businesses can watch this later today and this evening. So I just remind everybody to, any information you don't want to have contained in the video, don't bring it up here. And I'll probably bring that up a couple times, just because people do join these, late as can be. But because we are recording this and we want to make the most of our time, we'll give it over to JoAn. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. And it's nice to be here. I'm going to pull up my screen here so that we can stay on task a little bit here. And I'm going to keep this fairly informal. I've got a few things that I'd like to share with you on staying resourceful in difficult times. And this is a topic that comes and goes. It ebbs and flows as our economy ebbs and flows, interestingly enough. And right now we seem to be in the ebb side of things. And so the topic that I'm going to be focusing on primarily is one where we're looking at building resourcefulness, tapping into our innate strengths and experiences that we have, focusing on optimism, positive authenticity, and hope. And I'm taking a little bit more of a customer perspective here, where we're going to be focusing on reading the customer's needs, connecting with an authentic smile, being helpful, being resourceful, having and maintaining, most importantly, a positive attitude, even when sometimes it may be failing us right at the moment. How do we do that? And how do we communicate in a language that the customer will understand and that will allow mutual shared positive outcomes? These are all the areas that become important as we just look at basics of dealing with these difficult times. As you have questions, please jot them down in the chat if you would. That would be great. And we'll also have plenty of time afterwards. We can go through a number of things, whether it's from stress management, change management, to anything in particular on handling a difficult customer service situation. So far, we've been pretty lucky on the islands here. And over on Orcas, I have been very impressed with how things have been going. And that's good. And then when we start entering phase 3, things may change. So hopefully this will give you a few little tools in the toolkit to help with that. So building resourcefulness, taking a quick look at that. A lot of the things I'm going to be talking about is building personal resourcefulness. These are skills that we don't a lot of times even look at as skill sets. Sometimes they're referred to in the HR field, which is my background. This is basically, these are competencies. These are personal competencies that each one of us has. And we've had them for a long time. We've been building on them. We've been honing them. We're going to be developing them our whole life. And one of the things that I look at here is the combination of what's really internal to us. What are our values, our personal values? Those are competencies that we do have. And in experiences in difficult times, we draw upon those. We need those. And sharing those, matching personal value to personal value. What we find, we can find unity with a lot more people when we get to core values, such as respect and peacefulness and kindness and areas like that, that we have learned from our family and friends' influences throughout our lives. We learned it in the schools. We learned it in work settings. We've learned it in our neighborhoods. We've learned it in the sandbox. Also, looking at these very deep-seated areas, we have the environment. This is both a people environment, it's also our physical environment. Growing up on Orcas or San Juan Island or Lopez or Shaw or wherever you've grown up is a big part of who we are. What we see, what we love, what we take for granted sometimes. If we didn't grow up here, there are going to be other parts of the country. I personally grew up primarily in Iowa, so I really appreciate the San Juan Islands. This is like heaven on earth for me. And I live in an area where we've got a meadow, and it's a farmland area. So I feel very much at home here. It's a good thing. So the physical geography, as well as the environment. Did we grow up in a tight neighborhood where we had neighbors that were close to us? Were we more in a rural area? How did we grow up? All of these things make a difference. They help us in terms of understanding what our coping mechanisms are, what helps us to breathe peacefully, what helps us to really engage and feel like, whew, I can be more of me here. And someone may walk in to one of our places of business, and they're not from here, and they don't do things the same where they're from. And so they may want to try to correct us. They may want to better us, give us a more efficient way of doing things. And something else that they're actually trying to share to help us, and yet we look at that, and you may be coming away from urban areas, like I've come away from urban areas going, thank you very much, I appreciate that, I'm making a choice. And they don't understand that. And honestly, we probably don't have the time to go into it. But if we can understand where they're coming from, it can help us to be a bit more compassionate, to understand what's going on. Our culture is also very important. Where we were raised, how we were raised, with whom we were raised. What were the very, very important big parts of our lives that we experienced in our culture? Culture right now it's on the front page of every paper all over the world. You can't not understand that culture matters. Everyone's culture matters. And the more we can approach this from a grateful, curious perspective, the better chance we have of learning how somebody else was raised. It may be something that will give us a gift. We go, whoa, who knew? I never knew you could live life like that. Or, oh my God, you had to live life like that. These are things that are so important for each of us, for developing our own empathy, for developing our own humanity, how we can meet and greet difficult times in a much more kind, compassionate fashion, and also being able to take some action for ourselves, as well as allowing others to drop maybe some past memories that they just don't work anymore. They're not useful anymore. These are things that are important for us. Our inherited qualities too, very important. That's on the front page right now too. We can't help how we were born. Sometimes if it's an internal something going on, we can't see what's going on. Someone may have a vulnerability which is showing up under COVID right now. We're getting hit by everything right now. It's all on the front page, and it's all kind of coming together in a swirl. So we've got inherited qualities, whatever they are. Some of them are visible, some of them are invisible. And we have to be mindful of these. For each person that we meet, we don't know what their vulnerabilities may be, what they have been through. There's certain things that you may be able to see about them, but that doesn't really tell you very much. If you look at the genetics, it tells you almost nothing. And I'd have to say that some of these other areas of who we are, that if we look at the way the brain develops, this is going to have much more to do with how we meet our world, how we can learn, how we can engage, and how we respond and how we react. And then there's our outward side, and this is the part we put on resumes. And this is the part that we can deal with. And this is actually the how we can do something about difficult times. This comes from skills and training. There are lots of skills and trainings we learn at school. We learn them through attending webinars. We learn them everywhere we turn around. They're in the newspaper, they're in a newsletter, they're everywhere. These are all things that are extremely helpful and useful. Trainings. I can't get enough of these right now. I'm learning things that I've never thought that I would have a chance to learn. In the evenings now, I'm joining my Czech grandmother in spirit, and I'm learning Czech, finally, after all these years. We have these opportunities to learn some of these things. Our communication patterns, we can learn to do a better job of communication. In communication, we can do a better job of listening. And listening is probably one of the biggest aspects of communication that will help us in difficult situations. That pause so that we can listen before we communicate is a really critical one as well. That will then help us with understanding what type of problem-solving skills are probably useful in this situation. And again, I'm going to reiterate, pause, figure it out. Just give yourself a deep breath before you just jump in. It's taken me a long time to learn this. I'm grateful I am learning this right now. So I learn it every day. And sometimes I've learned how to do problem solving on the wrong side of the fence. And that has made me a better person, given me stronger resolve, so that I can actually use my other skills that I've learned, my trainings, my values, my education, the cultural backgrounds, my grandparents, what I learned from them, all of these, plus it all is going to come out through our personalities, however those personalities show up. And whatever we are the opposite of our personalities, which sometimes shows up at our doorstep, which is sometimes difficult to understand. These are clues, by the way. If there's someone that you immediately have a resistance to, a lot of times it's because their personality is very different. And if we can learn some tolerance and learn some language skills around personality, and we're going to talk a little bit about this later if we've got some time. But these are skills that are quite learnable, and they're very useful, especially frontline, when we're first dealing with someone before things escalate into a difficult situation or conversation. And then there's stress. Stress and change, I use them interchangeably because honestly, the definition of stress is really just how change is impacting us on a physiological level. There are no negatives or positives there, it's change. And when we look at that, that's something that can help us to grow and to learn. These are important things physiologically to understand. If I'm in a highly stressed situation and I myself have been feeling stress for whatever reason, and heaven only knows, there are plenty of reasons right now to feel stress. But if I do have a lot of stress right now, it does give me the opportunity to pause a little longer and even be a little bit on the vulnerable side and share with the person, quite frankly, these are tough times. This has been a tough day. Bear with me. I'm going to try to handle this really well. Help me out. There is no shame in being authentic. None whatsoever. In fact, most of the times, people are going to go, okay, it has been stressful for me too. And so both of us can just take a deep breath and we can bring a tad bit of humor into the situation. And this humor is really, really important. So when we look at the humor and we look at life and having a sense of humor, and I don't mean the kind of humor where you're laughing inappropriately. I'm meaning the kind of humor where we're vulnerable, where we're just sharing one person, one idea at a time. This then allows us to best be motivated to inspire. First ourselves, because if we don't inspire ourselves first, how the heck can we truly be inspiration to anybody else? There's no light left. It's like we're all covered up. And so we want to be able to be that inspiration internally. And that will be able to use our talents best. And these are our transitions between our invisible skills that we have and competencies of value systems and the culture and all of our inherited qualities that we've had. And be able to marry those with what we've learned in the outside world that we've got ready to go in our resumes and all of that. So this is a bit of a backdrop. That's a model, if you will, for how I really see looking at the world and how we can really learn a little bit more. There's some icebreakers, and if you want, please feel free to use these. These are one-liners that sometimes can help. We use them in soft skills training at the university where I'm an instructor over in Germany. And it's, where did you grow up? We can talk about those things. Those are easy. And then where were you in the birth order in your family? These are, you don't have to go into deep, dark psychological areas here. These are fun things. If someone has grown up in an area where you've lived or you've had a great vacation, and keep it on the good side. If it's an area that you did not have a good experience, that you can hold inside yourself. You don't need to share that with them. Unless they bring something up and it becomes a point. Okay, but in a good way, okay. But where did you grow up? If you grew up in an area, I fell in love with the Pacific Northwest when I was 10. We took a road trip out here. I made it as far as Gig Harbor, and I decided, man, I want to be on an island somewhere in the Northwest. And sure enough, I made it there. It wasn't as early as I wanted to, but I made it here. And so how I grew up, where I grew up, what kind of trips did I take? You can ask those kinds of questions. What was your favorite road trip growing up as a kid? Did you have any road trips? Could you do that? Or camping trip? Or what did you do for fun as a kid? These are all important things. What you don't want to do is to leave it too open. Like, what was your biggest memory? Probably not a great idea because it may have been a nasty situation. So for openers, not a good place to go. The trust isn't there yet. However, you can get into some of these deeper trust areas by asking, well, what were some of the key national historic events going on, like we've got right now going on in so many ways, right here, right now. This is going to influence an entire generation of people, or two, or three. No matter what else happens, they will know, for instance, that George Floyd had a huge significance. They will remember where they were when all this was happening. Just like I remembered when John F. Kennedy was assassinated and we saw it on TV. Those are the types of things you can't not bring into memory and commit to some part of you. How it shows up is going to depend on your culture, your background, your family, trainings that you end up having in the future, all of those things. The lessons and the values you learn from your family, also significant. Those are things that get one step deeper. And again, the fail-safe is, what did you do for fun when you were growing up? And sometimes I even add, because when I've done many workshops, sometimes people come up with things and I'm going, oh dear, I'm from Iowa. We didn't do those types of things. That would have been illegal in Iowa. And some people don't understand it because it was commonplace in where they were raised. For instance, my friends from Eugene, Oregon have some experiences that rather shocked me when I heard about them. It was all in fun and it worked out. So anyway, here are a few little icebreakers that are something that you could maybe use. The next thing I want to just share with you briefly is focusing on optimism, hope, and positive authenticity. And this authenticity, I want to really emphasize this, because don't ever smile if you don't feel like smiling, because it's going to show right through that fake smile of yours. And anytime any of us is being other than respectful and we're trying too hard, it shows up. It shows up in a job interview. It shows up in a relationship. as something that we don't trust, and we can't put our finger on it, but that authenticity is so important. So however you can be positive in your authenticity, that's good. And maybe the kindest thing you can do is to not say not anything and to just listen. And don't form your sentence until you've finished listening. And you may need to end with, is there anything else? And usually what's most important, they save to last. So then they come up with the one thing maybe you can start with. If we look at that, that can also be authentic, all of that. The hope is inside you. And sometimes that hope takes on funny colors. And I know sometimes my hope, if I don't express it out loud because I would surprise people with, sometimes it's like, oh man, I hope this day is going to be over pretty quick because I am just so ready to climb into bed and read right now. And that may be my hope for the day. Okay, I'm going to have to wait for that one. The optimism, though, that comes from there will be the end of a day. The optimism that the sun will rise again. We can start over. We can start a conversation over. If it's not going the way we want, stop it. Just say, hold on, can we start this over again? The number of times I have used that tactic and it's worked well. And people look at me, and some of it is probably because it's so surprising. It doesn't get used that often. And a lot of it's like, this is not going the way I wanted. I said some things I'd like to take back. Can I take them back? Can we start over? Forgive me. And if they say no, then I just say, fine, carry on. But they know in their heart what's going on. They may have too much pride. They may be too stubborn to admit it. This particularly happens in families. Why, I don't know, but it can. So these are things that can go on. But it's important that we hold on to that hope. We hold on to that optimism that we can do better. Maybe in this moment we blew it. Okay, if you can retract, if you can apologize right away, that's so much better than holding on stubbornly and pretending that you're going to be able to push the way, pull the wool over their eyes. They don't get it. They're not smart enough. They're not in my shoes. They don't I don't know, whatever. There are 1,001 things we can imagine. But the important thing is when you've blown it, apologize. That is a strength that only people who are strong can ever do. We show our frailty when we fail to apologize. And I'm talking frailty. Weakness is something we can work on. We don't want to be playing the victim in a way that is not empowering to ourselves and to those around us and to the families that raised us. We are bigger than that. We can do more. We can be more. So looking at how we can be more, there are things that maybe we can do that'll help. And these start with ourselves, because we've got to empower ourselves and we've got to be hopeful about ourselves. We have to actually share the kindness with ourselves first. I got to acknowledge my feelings and I need to somehow give them voice, even if it's internally. I may not need to share them with everybody else, but it is something that we do have. By the way, these all came from the first side came from a neat article that Melissa Matani had written in CNN that I saw this weekend. And I went, oh man, this is perfect. These are 5 really crystal clear points, and I like them because I can add to them some of the other points that have always been my core things too, but she did a great job of bringing these up. So acknowledge your feelings, give them voice. And by giving them voice, it can be an internal voice that you may realize this is your inside voice, not the time to speak up yet. It may be something you want to talk about later. You put it on the back shelf. The other thing is that somehow it's really important to connect with others. As humans, we are social creatures. It's hard to be out in COVID land and not connecting with people in a really touch-based human way that we were used to before. But we can still connect. Look at us now. I am so grateful for the internet, for Zoom, for all of its foibles and all the weirdness. I am so grateful for this. I'm grateful to John and for EDC and for San Juan County getting all this stuff together. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing, and we have a lot to be grateful for. We can connect. We can then journal our thoughts for greater clarity. I've taken on this practice, especially during the time of quarantine, of journal writing in the morning. And it may not be for very long. Sometimes I don't have too much time. But I will write a little something, and it gets me off. Sometimes I try to start off with a positive comment, and every once in a while, I don't have that positive comment anymore. And I just get on with it. So at that point, that's when then I can engage with the world. I've written it out, and if I had woke up on the wrong side of bed, at least I wrote it out, and now I can get involved, and I can be more positive. I can be so much more positive. I can actually start sharing, and I am open to learning now. I can learn from my environment. I can learn from others. I'm going out searching for learning. I'm using every tool in the tool chest. Whatever island you're on, there are resources that we have. There are websites that we have. San Juan County is doing an incredible job with websites. I spend way too much time surfing the net. I've been all over that website, and I've learned things. There are things that I'm going, whoa, this is over my head. But it's interesting, it's there. And it allows me to ask somebody that has a lot more skill set than I do in some of the technical areas and some of the land use planning that are so critical. And it's like, I should be reading on this. And I'm looking at other things, and it's like, okay, I will get to it. I will get to it. Okay, we can all learn things that we do need. Being kind to yourself. You're going to hear me say this a lot. There is something that is really important that I have found in highly stressful times. And the first time I saw this was back in the late 90s. And I was working with one of our federal agencies at the top state executive level. And I realized every one of them was extraordinarily stressed out. And what I heard them all doing was saying they didn't have time to do all these things. And these were the things that they'd identified at the very beginning in our quick little soft skills chat of, well, what did you used to love doing? What did you do for fun as a kid? And none of them were doing it anymore. And I realized at that moment, they stopped doing what they loved doing. That's a heck of a way to be in the world. How do we have time to not do what we love? To not be with the people we love? Even if it's through Zoom, even if it's through a phone call. We don't have time on this planet to stop doing what we love. We must keep doing that. We have to find out. And if you love to dance, put on the music and just dance. Nobody's going to be criticizing you, not in the privacy of your living room. Who cares? Make a meeting with yourself. If you need to leave a situation because you've got a meeting with yourself to practice a little better kindness than to be in a gossip session, do it. It is so important. Life is fleeting. We all have found that out in these past days. All of us know this. So we don't have time to not do what we love. And I cannot encourage you to do that enough. I personally got into a very bad state of depression. It was postpartum depression after my second child. But I had stopped dancing. It's something that was my first career. And I'd stopped doing it altogether. And I didn't realize it. I'd stopped dancing for 10 years at that point. And I was in a deep, dark depression. And somehow I started dancing again. I was at a workshop, and that was one of my assignments, was to put a poem to dance. And I was going, oh my God, it was enough to share a poem. And now I have to dance, and I'm going, oh man, and all I could do was cry, because that had been my life. I finished the dance, and I am so glad that I did. And dance has never left me since then. And we have resources on the island. We can dance when we get back to that. Hopefully stage, if it's not phase 3, it's in phase 4, and I can't wait for that. Okay. There is also the good we want to acknowledge that's in the world. Focus on the good. If we can focus on the good, we can get there. Growth comes from chaotic transformation. And chaos is something that it's kind of ugly when it's going. And we're seeing actually some ugly going on right now. But there can't be transformation unless we have chaos. We all know that. And it's easier to move through that chaos. We can transform it more graciously, in a kinder way, if we can acknowledge efforts being made towards the good. Because we're going to be clumsy at doing some stuff. It's okay. That's how it should be at the beginning. If we really knew what we should be doing at the beginning, we should have been doing it a long time earlier. So it's just part of how things work out. The other little thought, just to keep in mind, I have a friend that had said this a lot. If we knew what was coming, we'd probably be more hopeful, and we wouldn't resist today's challenges quite as much. Because we get stuck in this chaos, and we think it's going to go forever. And no, it won't. We will move on from this. Okay, a few little customer service things that I want to just share with you. And this came from a colleague of mine back in Bend, and he moved actually to the San Juan Islands. And he always used to say that customers are respected, they are welcomed. Where they are welcomed, they will feel much more likely to return, and they'll feel invited to return at that point. These are all things that we want to be able to do in some way, shape, or form with people that we are interacting with. Our internal customers, fellow staff members, our colleagues, we need to treat them number one as customers. Remember, they were there before the customers were allowed back. We want to focus on positive outcomes and possibilities, acknowledging reality. And whatever you do, don't lie. And if you can't help them, just be honest, be authentic with them. This isn't what we can do right now. Customer criticisms, if you can hear them as a suggestion or as an interesting idea or a future consideration, it's easier from that mindset than if we take it as a criticism of us personally. If we take it personally, it's possible that what we say back may be felt as a personal attack or a defense or something that isn't very welcoming. And if we can simply thank them for their suggestion, you don't have to say you're going to take it. You can thank them for it. That, if you can get to that point, that's cool, that's good. Or in your own mind, just go, okay, at some point, maybe I'll appreciate this. If you can thank them for bringing it up, sometimes it's helpful if you're the owner. I always wanted to know if something had gone wrong, and I would take the blame for it. I'll say, well, obviously I need to do some more training, and I'm glad you brought this up. So let's get down to the point of what your issue is. And I would handle things continuously like that. And you'd be surprised. At one point in my life, I ran a frozen yogurt shop, and the weird things that people would bring up there in food service. I had the ultimate gratitude for anybody in retail food. It is one of the toughest businesses in the world, truly. I can also thank somebody very quickly for bringing something up at last if they've been harboring to this, or so quickly. I've gotten used to doing that. It takes a little bit of practice, but that you can do a little bit more quickly. When you can, where you can, follow through with a customer's checkup on their satisfaction And even the customers that you know are really satisfied, check up with them, because sometimes you just need the atta-girl, atta-boy in your life. That can be really, really helpful. And understanding the needs as well. Training staff, that's something that is really important to do. And especially the training that they know when to come get you. And you can have a code word for it. Whoa, we got a hot one. And that can help you or whoever is coming in to help them to understand all of this. Okay. Even if you can't help the person or the staff member can't help them, knowing that you as an organization, a small business, care and someone's listening may actually save someone's lives. People are depressed right now. And if our economic comeback isn't what we hope it's going to be, we'll see a lot more of this coming out in the next 6 to 12 months. And I have been there in very, very tough times. And I have seen these situations where people cry out for help in the darndest ways. And if we can all be caring one with the other for the people who are on our islands or who are visiting our islands or share family with our islands, it's going to be important. So if we can train staff a little bit more about that, I think it will be really helpful. And then finally, communicating in the customer's language to build some trust. And one of the things that I look at is listening. That so much of our communication, we are taught how to talk to people. Whereas probably the biggest single skill is listening, and listening with respect. And the more we can listen and be a better listener, the more the person will tell their story, and they may even answer their own question, or they will give you a hint as to how to go about understanding them, their problem, into an opportunity for you to practice good customer service, if that's what you offer, or at least to transform a situation. We can do this with our families as well. It's tough with our kids right now. And the more we can just sit there and listen, they'll be surprised, first of all, because we're, as parents, oftentimes I know, I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I jump into advice too quickly. And if I just listen, they'll keep talking. And the more I listen to them, I'm understanding, oh, that's a deeper problem than what you first started saying. Okay. And that's typically how conversations go. And that's why listening is so important, so that we can understand where they're coming from, and then, and only then, begin to communicate. And begin to communicate when we begin to understand and have the rapport where we can speak in their language a little bit, even if it's just for, hey, I'm really sorry that this didn't work out, or whatever it is, and just say, I don't quite know how to fix this right now. Share your thoughts, please. That will help. And let's keep working on this. Let's just keep the conversation going. The more we can do that, the more we can build trust. And this becomes a very, very important element, because with trust, relationships happen. Anything can happen. Trust is the magic ingredient in any conversation, in any communication, interaction, relationship. And however we can do it and keep it, it's so much easier to keep it than to reestablish it once broken. So that is something that is a really difficult thing. And trust really starts with that pause, that thanking them, the other person, for expressing whatever you can sincerely. Thank yourself for listening. Do that. Reinforce your listening skills. They may not, so you're going to have to do it yourself. That's really helpful. And again, you all have probably heard these things before, but it expressed from authentic I statement, like, man, I'm really sorry. Instead of, boy, you don't really understand me. You don't understand what you bought. You don't understand that. That is not particularly helpful. That can escalate the intensity. And what we want to try to do is to de-escalate the intensity. And there's one thing to add there, which is one step more moderated at a time. So if someone is really angry with you, if your response is to, and you were in a totally peaceful place and they catch you off guard, it's going to be important for you to ramp up and actually intensify a little bit so you can understand where they're coming from, so you can begin to de-escalate it. Otherwise, you don't sound sincere. If you're going, oh man, just take a deep breath. And if they were really angry, man, that's probably the wrong thing to say. I don't know about you, I've done that before and that did not work out so well. And I dug a deeper hole. So what I discovered in the course of learning a lot of different communication skills is that I had to sometimes ramp up a little bit so that I could feel what they were feeling a little bit more, so I could meet them and talk in a more authentic way to them and understand their pain, their upsetness, how it screwed up their family, vacation, whatever it was that they had been saving years for, whatever it might be. And then the last little thing to add here is this, and this was a technique that I learned when I was taking a lot of NLP trainings and communications, and that is to ask instead of why did you do that? Because that sounds a bit like it's an interrogative sort of a situation. It even can sound a little accusatory. Why is a horrible question startup? Instead, if we could start with how. Now, that said, it's a really awkward, uncomfortable way to start a question when we really want to just say, why did you do that? And if we just say, how is it that that happened? Sounds awkward, but it's so much more engaging and approachable for someone to talk and express something in return. So practice that. I'll have to say, when I first learned this about this technique, I think right now, it was about 25 years ago. It took me, I was not good at it for a couple of years. So that's something that I do want to just express, that it is something that can be extremely helpful. Try it, practice it a little bit. Practice it with your friends, with your kids, and let them know you're practicing a new technique, because they may think you're acting a little weird with it. So that's what I wanted to share with you. You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you so much. And open it up now for anybody that has any questions.
Wow, thank you, JoAn. That was good. I mean, I knew it was going to be good, but some of those things hit home for me personally, and it's always good to sort of take stock and remind yourself of things that habits you've developed over possibly decades, and get them see them in the light of something like this, and be able to look at it as something positive I can do for me and those around me and the people I'm going to have to interact with in the future. And these are all great reminders. It's a very, very small group, and everybody is unmuted. So if you guys want to unmute and just we can have an open discussion. It's a formal Q&A. That's fine. And just a reminder, this, I think you were all here at the beginning. This is being recorded, so you don't want anybody to watch later. Just don't bring it up now. Hey, Vicki Lynn.
Hi there, you guys. I just want to thank you. Is it Joan or JoAn?
JoAn.
Hi, JoAn. I like how you spell your name like that. In the last 2 days, I have heard be authentic 3 times. So that's always a cue for me that is something that I really need to pay attention to. And I'm really discovering that smiling all the time is great, but it's not my true authentic self at this time.
Yeah.
I have the normal stresses, and then I have all of these odd stresses that I am not even sometimes aware of, some kind of trauma responses. And so I'm finding myself interacting with my crews out on the job, like I'll show up and I'm already scared. So when I see an unsafe situation, I'm finding myself reacting more than I need to. So I think I've been really trying to process, and I'm not able to change that behavior right now, but I'm very aware of it. So I think what I just want to share with my crew is, just be authentic and say, I'm really struggling right now. It's really stressful. I don't mean it, take it personally, but I have a lot to process, and I want you to know that I don't know what the words will be, but
they'll come. They'll come.
It's just high stress. So I need to figure out a way where I can communicate with them, but then stop beating myself up, because a lot of the energy I'm spending at home is going over those conversations, and it's like, where am I? Where is the real Vicky again? And I'm beating myself up and wasting all that energy, and I've got to stop. So,
So Vicky,
really good. So thank you.
Welcome to the human race. And all you're doing is every time, if you beat yourself up, go ahead, beat yourself up and just go, darn, I'm really doing a good job of being human right now. And sometimes it's just so darn funny being human. Look at this. This is hysterical. All righty then. What else can I say to beat myself up? I could do this even better, and have fun with it.
Have fun.
Have fun with it.
What I really want to do is just be able to have that conversation and just say, I need to move on from this, and it's causing even more additional stress.
Right.
So and I'm noticing about myself, and so anyway, this is really good. Thank you.
Okay. Well, yeah, and don't expect perfectionism, because we're just all human. So, and I know that's not an easy thing to do. So that perfectionism thing, it's a tough one. So thank you so much.
So much.
Yeah, all the best on that too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing that came up when JoAn and I first started talking about this presentation and sort of exploring the directions of it was just, keeping something we've been trying to articulate to everybody that we've talked to since March. Feels like the last 20 years, but it's been since March. There's just two key tenets that keep coming up, and one is just in the scheme of things, when it's all happening and we're all being hit from all sides, is remembering that we have never done this before. We've never experienced this in our lifetimes, something like this event. And it's important to sort of ground yourself in reality when we start thinking about how we're maybe not, we're struggling. Why are we struggling? Why is my toolkit that I've used for the last several decades doing what I do not effective now? And it is because the rules are completely upended, and just in civil society, we don't meet in person. We meet over Zoom, and we've fortunately progressed from phone conferences to Zoom elegantly. I know a lot of people who resisted these kinds of things back before COVID, but now this is what you do. So this is that from about 40 minutes ago, progression from chaos kind of thing. It's something I see in my daily life now. People that this was not a thing. You don't video, and now it's this is normal. And the other thing is when we talk to business owners, especially back when there was so much uncertainty what the government response was going to be and how those programs were going to work, and just the initial chaos of it all was just I would talk to when I talk to people, it's not, and I know, like Vicki, I talked to you a couple times back in the beginning, it's just the same thing. It's not really there's never a short phone call. These were all phone calls about where we get very involved in, just hearing people's stories, what they're going through, and the change, the sudden, humongous change that they're dealing with. And, we obviously try to, give the best guidance and support that we can, based on the tools that we had, have had and have developed over time. But it was always, important to let people know, when they're sitting in their house and they're looking at their bills and they're trying to figure out how this all works, is that you are not alone. None of you are alone in this. You are all experiencing the same thing at the same time. And that's small comfort when you're facing a bank deadline, but at the same time, there's something about knowing, just recognizing that, in conjunction with the fact that we've all never done this before, we're also all going through it at the same time. And I just try to express that to people. And, then when we get updates from the SBA or Treasury or unemployment or all those, other financial relief options that have come up, along the way, and we've tried to get it out there, is to make sure that everybody, as many people as we can bring along when those changes come into effect, and people can, use those options, is they all, we want everybody to come along for the ride and to recover at the end of the day. That is the goal. That's what we've been doing since the day I started 3 months ago here. And, the work isn't done yet. But
Absolutely.
you just sort of, at this point in time, you can see the progression. And now we're talking about welcoming people back to the islands and the strains and stresses that they're under, and the strains and stresses we're under, and how those are going to intersect in fascinating ways over the next several weeks in everybody's little microcosms of their businesses that they know so well, but have been changed forever by this. So I can't express enough how fortunate we are to have you talking about this today, of all days. And I'm looking forward to getting this posted up later today and pushing it out to people that, are back at work, sanitizing their counters and training their employees and trying to figure out what the next 2 weeks is going to look like. And being able to give them something that they can incorporate into their thinking, even if they take one piece of vital information away from this. We all can be honest with ourselves about what that piece of information is, because it tickles us in the right way and goes, oh yeah, that thing, okay. Because I did that twice. I'm not going to say what they were, but it hit. It's like there's something cathartic about recognizing that we all have work to do. Steve, do you have any questions or thoughts, or you're perfect as you are?
Hardly. But no, I really enjoyed the presentation, JoAn. So many things hit home, and I was in retail and the customer service business for 30 plus years of my career, and I used to like to talk to my employees and my representatives that work for me. And I had a favorite saying that said, you know what, customers are not always right. So don't feel like that's the case, but they always deserve to be treated right.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I used to like to say. And,
beautiful.
And I think that if you get that mindset, that my job is to treat the customers right, no matter how much of a problem they're presenting for me at this particular point, and you're going to be better off. So, but you hit home with a lot of things that I truly believe, and I can certainly practice better myself. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch it again. Not right now, but
yeah. No,
comes the time.
Yeah, I have to set aside some time to revisit this one, and I was on the call. I was here. Wow. Well, thank you, JoAn. That was wonderful. I know you do training and consulting is your work, and we can, if any, anybody watching this video later, if they want to reach out to JoAn for advice or to set up something with their business, feel free to reach out to us here at the EDC. That's info@sanjuans with an S, edc.org. I just want to thank you again for joining us, Vicki. It's always a pleasure to see you. And Steve, you've been a champ coming to almost, I think, literally every one of these things that we've put on. So thank you for always being a friendly face. Just a programming note: while our chat and juice have gone on hiatus for the next few months, these business recovery calls are probably going to go to a bi-weekly format. That's bi-weekly, every other week, not twice a week. But we'll make announcements when and what our next business recovery call will be. Hopefully we'll keep that to the 10 o'clock Wednesday slot. But as businesses are reopening and people are busy, we may make adjustments to that. Our community forums, which have been interesting, are also going to a monthly format. And that's simply because we have a lot of other things that we're doing here at the EDC. If there are things that, but we're happy to put these on. We do what we do to help you guys. So if there is a topic or subject matter expert that you would like to see on any of these kinds of things, please reach out to us and let us know. We're exploring these things constantly and try to make the best decisions on who to bring on for what topic. All of these recordings are archived at the same link that you went to get the information for this. But it's on our website under sanjuansedc.org. Under news, and you scroll down to business recovery, and you can see all the recordings from the last few ones. We try to encourage people to go look at them because we do this for a reason. We think it provides businesses with good insight. So please keep an eye out on our Facebook page and our website and our newsletter. If you haven't signed up for it, we push them out twice a week. All that can be found on our website. And once again, JoAn, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vicki.
Bye,
Steve.
guys.
Thank you.
I'm going to miss you guys next week.
Bye, Steve.
Right.
All right. Thank you.